welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, and along with the main man in the parlay business, Mr. Chris King. And Chris, last night we got to witness something that we talked about prior to the game, and that was what it's like to play in what, in essence, is a wind storm for the better part of 3 hours. It was very interesting. It was the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust was pretty much all you could do last night.
That's true. I mean, and that just goes to show you the kind of weather you can get in Western New York, especially later in the season. Buffalo really shot themselves in the foot when you get down to it. They had a lot of drops. Dawson Knox dropped 3 different passes. 2 would have given them first downs. One could have been a potential go-ahead touchdown there on that last drive that ended in the red zone. The thing that I was most disappointed with actually wasn't on the field. It was afterwards when Jerry Sullivan, who I have a lot of respect for as a writer for the Buffalo News, went and asked a question to Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer about how they felt about getting their butts kicked by the ground game. And Hyde and Poyer had a right to be upset. If you think about it, I mean, if you take away that big touchdown run by Damian Harris and a couple other big runs, they kept New England in check for the most part. They had 9 or 10 tackles for loss. This was not like the Colts game a couple weeks ago.
No.
And for Sullivan to make a statement like that when he's covered the team for pretty much an eternity, he's been there as long as Larry Felser was at Buffalo and Vic Carucci.
Right.
It was surprising to have Sullivan ask a question like that, and I think that it's something that's going to stick in the mind of Hyde and Poyer going forward. Mm-hmm. And you have to think that maybe it'll be a spark for them.
Let's hope so. It's excuse me, the first touchdown, the long one, was basically busted coverage because if you look at what was going on, they were going to basically blitz, and they were selling out to get to Mac Jones, and it was just all he had to do was slide through the tackle. He did. There wasn't anybody in front of him.
Yeah, so, well, on that play too, Tyrell Dodson overcommitted to the outside. He only started because A.J. Klein was put in the COVID protocols pretty much right before the game, so he didn't even know he was going to start.
Right.
And then Micah Hyde, he took a bad angle on that one. I will say that. Yeah. But that happens far less frequently than he makes good plays. I mean, it was an unfortunate play. You saw New England had no faith in throwing the ball yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And
they didn't try.
Yeah, and you saw the way the winds affected in special teams. You saw that punt that swirled around and bounced off N'Keal Harry's helmet.
Yeah.
You saw the kick that Tyler Bass, and I think he overcommitted to the wind, and that's why he pulled it to the right. If he hadn't done that, then that last drive, they could have attempted a field goal instead of having to go for a touchdown.
Right.
In the end, I give credit to Bill Belichick. He devised a game plan. He stuck to it.
Mm-hmm.
After he saw that first pass that Jones threw to Jonnu Smith looked like a Steve Grogan special, he decided he wasn't going to put the ball in his hands and make him try to throw the ball anymore. I know it aggravated Peyton and Eli Manning on the Manning cast, but Belichick did what he needed to do to get his team an important victory to head into their bye. As a fan, it was disappointing, but they had their opportunities. They just didn't capitalize as far as the Bills go.
Well, and then they'll head down to Tampa to play against the Buccaneers this coming Sunday. It's a 4:35 game.
And I know you cover the Bucs. What do you make of that contest, especially knowing that the Bucs are really banged up in the secondary and the weather will probably not have 50-mile-an-hour winds at Raymond James Stadium this week?
Yeah, I think that look, right now the Buccaneers defense is really the front line. It's really Vita Vea and the run defense, and they're getting pressure. They're utilizing the linebackers in pretty much an old Monty Kiffin style situation where sometimes they are edge rushers, and sometimes they drop off and cover. But their secondary's depleted badly, and so that doesn't spell, that spells the potential for a lot of points for Buffalo, for sure.
Now, Jamal Dean, I know he left the game Sunday. Does anybody know what his status is right now?
Yeah. At the moment, he's a day-to-day, but I think we'll see how that works out. They've signed a couple of guys to the practice squad to see how that's going to work out, but they're down to like third and fourth string corners, and they got a couple of safeties that are banged up. So yeah, that whole secondary is a mess. And so
Mike Edwards is suspended, of course, after the that whole incident that I'm not totally clear on what it was. I don't know if it was tied to the Antonio Brown situation or not.
Yeah. So you got Mike Evans and Antonio Brown gone. So yeah, but Brady will likely do a lot of dinking and dunking his way downfield. You'll see a lot of throwing to the backs, probably to Leonard Fournette, a lot of stuff to Gronk.
Fournette's impressed me. He's really turned into a good pass catching back, because you didn't really see that in Jacksonville.
Well, yeah, but the key is that you have to have a quarterback who can actually hit you on the run. That didn't happen a lot in Jacksonville.
That's true.
So I'm looking at it as, to be honest, when we started looking at games of the season, right, when you start planning things out, when we went down the roster, I thought, okay, this is a loss, because I just thought that the Buffalo team of this year was their year in my mind. And it still may be.
I thought the same. Not necessarily about it being a loss, but about it being a good year for the Bills. But I mean, if you look, they've shot themselves in the foot in some of their games. The loss to Pittsburgh in Week 1, they had a punt blocked for a score, and that was the decisive score. They lose to Jacksonville because they can't move the ball. They overlooked the Jaguars. They thought that they could just show up and blow that team off the field, and it didn't happen. They got stomped by the Colts. I can't defend that one at all. Mm-hmm. Tennessee, they lost by 3 in a game where Josh Allen slipped on fourth down and won from the 3-yard line in the final seconds. They could have won that game.
Right.
A lot of people criticized Sean McDermott for that play call then. However, if you think about it, if Allen gets that first down or he scores a touchdown on that play, Sean McDermott's the greatest coach since George Halas.
Right.
It didn't happen. They lost that game. But you also have to take into consideration, in that Tennessee game, the Titans had Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. None of those guys have played recently for Tennessee.
I was going to say that was the last time that team picture was taken. I'll tell you what. We'll get when we get closer to it this week. We'll see how it's playing out. But right now, I think it's going to be a good game. I would have to, to me, it's an even game at this point. I don't think, I don't look at it and say, well, the Bucs have an easy trip to make it happen. I also don't think that the Bills have a clean-cut shot. So I think it's really,
especially without Tre'Davious White.
I'm sorry?
Especially without Tre'Davious White, because you're taking away one of the number one corners in the league.
Right.
Against a very prolific Tampa Bay offensive attack.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, they certainly throw a lot, so we'll see how
we saw that against Atlanta.
Yeah, they kept the ball in the air quite a bit, but we'll see how it works out. But at the end of the day, I think that's going to be, of the games coming this week, I think that's going to be one of the more entertaining ones for sure. All right, let's head out today and let's talk about college basketball. Let's start with a trip where Oklahoma plays Butler.
Yeah, Lavelle Jordan going to bring the Bulldogs to the Lloyd Noble Center in Norman and take on the Sooners. Butler's 5-3, but if you look at that record is not that impressive when their top win is over Troy, who's rated below 250 in the Ken Pom rankings. Their last 2 wins have come over Chaminade and another small school that nobody remembers. So they haven't really beaten anyone of value. Meanwhile, Oklahoma, they had to rebuild this team in the offseason after bringing Porter Moser in from Loyola Chicago in April, but they just beat UCF and Florida in their last 2 games. Speaking of Florida, what in the world happened to them last night, getting beaten at home by a Texas Southern team that was a 23-point underdog and 0-7 on the year. The Gators, I guess they forgot to show up.
Yeah, I was wondering if Dan Mullen was coaching. Didn't know.
I heard Ron Zook was in the building.
Yeah, Ron Zook was assistant coach. No, that was I didn't even, to be honest. I thought, well, I'll check the Gator score after. It was like I'm like, yeah, but is this a misprint? How did no?
That's what I thought when I looked at it.
I looked at it. They didn't just get beat; they got beat. So
they were beaten soundly.
Yeah,
like I said, Texas Southern was 0-7.
Yeah. Now this was a team that, by all intents and purposes, you're in the second half, you're probably playing some of the kids that are on the other end of the bench.
Right.
But no, that was not the case, and it was you look at it and go, this is crazy. But no, I have no idea. I have no excuses. Coach White will have to figure that one out himself. But they're a better team than that. They sure as heck didn't show it last night.
Yeah, well, back to this one. Like I said, that was Oklahoma's last game. They're 4-0 at home, and Butler's playing their first true road game. They had those neutral site games in the Maui Invitational coming to you live from Las Vegas.
Right.
Butler just 307th in scoring offense. They turn the ball over way too much. They turn it over on more than 1 out of every 4 possessions. They have 15.3% of their shots blocked, and they're 341st in tempo. Meanwhile, you're facing an Oklahoma team that is 18th in effective field goal percentage. They shoot almost 61% from inside the arc. Butler 1-5 in their last 6 on the road with against a team with a home winning percentage better than 600. They're 1-6 in their last 7 on the road against teams with a winning home record. You can't trust the Bulldogs. Even though they're 23rd in the league in scoring, or the nation, in scoring defense, they haven't beaten anybody. And if you don't beat anybody and you haven't played on the road and you lost 2 games on a neutral floor to, I'm not going to say Texas A&M sucks. They're a mediocre team. Buzz Williams had to rebuild that team too. But I don't have any faith in Butler. And Lavelle Jordan, he's got his hands full there.
Yeah, and, they haven't been that good since Brad left. To go
right when Gordon Hayward was there and everything else.
Yeah, they recruited well, and and surprisingly, Oklahoma has been an up and down team, and
but they've been strong in the early going this season. Like I said, you beat UCF, you beat Florida, and this is basically a whole new team from last season because all their Brady Manick transferred. Cameron McGusty's in Miami.
Right.
It's not so. I mean, it's not the Oklahoma team that you're seeing. Lon Kruger obviously retired, and Mosher's done a good job sculpting together a team of guys that nobody knew at the start of the season.
True.
They didn't know what to expect. Joan, we're sorry you lost a bunch. You lost a bunch last week, and you should have been here yesterday because both of our 2-team parlays panned out, so you could have made back some of what you lost. Hopefully, it'll be better for you this week.
Yeah. Good to see you, Joan. Thanks for coming in the house. All right. Next up, Michigan at the Chrysler Arena in Nebraska.
No, they're actually, this game's actually in Lincoln.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I always put my pick first.
Yeah, okay.
I should probably mark that down.
So.
But, Michigan, they're coming off a 72-58 win at home over San Diego State in a game that I thought would have been closer, but they actually put together a good showing. Nebraska's lost 2 in a row. They lost 68-55 on the road to Indiana in their Big Ten opener Saturday. Michigan very good on the defensive end of the floor. They're 48th in effective field goal percentage and 31st in three-point defense. If you look, we just talked about this with Butler. Nebraska is just as bad. They may have a decent record, but their best wins over Sam Houston State. That's right.
Okay.
Sam Houston State.
Michigan Texas, by the way, for those who need to know.
Michigan is 4-1 in their last 5 on the road with a team winning percentage greater than 600. They're 9-3 in their last 12 as a road favorite. Nebraska 5-15 in their last 20 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. They're 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 on Tuesday. The Cornhuskers also without Trey McGowans, who's out again with a foot injury he sustained in mid-November. He's missed the last 5 games. Nebraska suffered without him. They do have his brother Bryce, both of them here from the Greenville area. I've seen them play when they were in high school. Good players, but Michigan, led by Juwan Howard, coaching that team, he knows how to get the most out of his team. We saw them make that deep tournament run last year. They should have little problem going in and taking care of Nebraska. Fred Hoiberg's team plays at a fast tempo, but they're very inefficient on the offensive end of the floor.
I didn't know what to think when Juwan Howard took that job. But
I was surprised he took it, in all honesty.
But it's hard to argue with a former member of the Fab Five that he's doing such a good job, and good on him, because I didn't see that coming. I really didn't.
I didn't either. When you've got Hunter Dickinson leading the way, it kind of makes things a little bit easier for you.
Yep. We got one more college basketball game. Then LGI will get to you, and Joni will get to you as well with your questions. Hang on. Here we go.
Right, and it's a battle of former Big East rivals.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys remember these games in the 80s when you had Ed Pinckney and Derek Coleman and Ronnie Cycli, Sherman Douglas, all those guys. Villanova is going to take on Syracuse at Madison Square Garden. Where else would you rather be than right there, right now? Well, if you're Syracuse, you're probably glad, because you're not at home where you've given up 100 and 110 points in your last two games. You're going too far ahead.
Yeah, I hit the wrong button. Sorry, my bad.
That's all right. Villanova is 6-2 this season. Their lone losses came to UCLA on the road in overtime, and they lost to Purdue on a neutral floor. Purdue's number one in the country. You can't really feel bad about that. And losing to UCLA, they were a top 5 team at the time. Can't feel bad about that one either. Syracuse, they've won 2 straight after that 3-4 skid. Like I said, they beat Indiana in double overtime at home in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, 112-110. They edged Florida State on the road over the weekend, which was surprising because Leonard Hamilton, he probably isn't too happy after seeing his team drop a conference game at home. Syracuse has their work cut out for them here. They're facing a Villanova team that's 4th in the nation in offensive efficiency. They're 19th in effective field goal percentage at better than 56%. They're dangerous from outside. They're 7th in three-point shooting at 42.2%, and they're 28th in free throw shooting, so they don't leave you a lot of free points laying around on the floor. Meanwhile, Syracuse, those are some ugly numbers, folks. 333rd out of 358 teams in Division I in scoring defense. They're 246th in field goal percentage defense, and they're 271st in three-point defense, as opposing teams hit nearly 38% from beyond the arc against them. Syracuse has given up at least 84 points in half of their 8 games this season. Villanova, we know they have a good offense. Look for them to take advantage and get some revenge on Cole Swider for deciding to take his game to Jimmy Boeheim. And Villanova takes this one home.
Yeah. You're talking about that. When I think of Villanova basketball and Syracuse basketball back in the day, it was Rolly Massimino and Boeheim. And the funny thing is, all those guys are gone. Boeheim's still there.
Boeheim is the Keith Richards of basketball. He will never die.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's go to a couple quick questions, then we're going to go to the ice. And here we go.
That's true, LJ. We're not here on the weekends, but you can always find me if you have any questions. You can ask me on Twitter, and I will get back to you. Otherwise, I do cover some games on winnersandwhiners.com. I don't get all the games that I normally would put on the show here, but if you have a question about a specific game, feel free to send me a message, and I'll get back to you with it.
Meanwhile, Joni.
Well, we're glad you're here today, Joan. We'll try to see if we can build on yesterday so you don't have to get a job. This is part of my job, so it makes things entertaining for me. I don't have to leave the house.
We work so you don't have to. There you go. Okay. Joaquin, what's up, fellas? Always appreciate the information. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate having you. We got coming up next on our list of questions.
That's true, Marky. Both of the two teamers hit yesterday. We had the Avalanche over the Flyers, and I don't know what you can say about the Flyers. It hasn't been said. They gave up 7 goals again. You have to feel bad. There's no truth to the rumor, though, I'm told, according to GM Chuck Fletcher. Gritty will not be the head coach behind the bench when they play tomorrow night. So you can put that down. Glad to have you, Memon. It's nice to see you
Yeah.
the first time we're here.
Hey, Memon, welcome, buddy. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to come back. And
And Joan, Villanova should cover. Syracuse is a sieve defensively, and I don't see Jay Wright letting his team let the foot or easing off the gas like they did against Penn. I just, Syracuse's defense is horrible.
mhm.
I think teams have figured out the 2-3 zone, and there's too many good shooters on Villanova's team for Boeheim to sit back and hope they miss.
Right. Before we get to the ice, little housekeeping, folks. There's a bunch of you out there, and we're happy that you're joining us. Whether you're joining us from Facebook or YouTube or Twitch or Twitter or however you're coming to us, we're very pleased that you're here. If you could do us a favor, and that is smash the like button and hit the subscribe button. That way,
Don't break your computer, though.
Yeah, don't hit it that hard, but go in and do that for us. The like button is very helpful to us because that way we know that people enjoy what's going on. And secondly, if you subscribe, well, then you're going to get the notifications as to when we're going to be on and all that good stuff. So if you do that, greatly appreciate it. And now, without any further ado, we're going to the frozen pond in the NHL. The Lightning. And
yep, they're going to the French-speaking province of Quebec to face the Canadiens.
They're going to get some poutine.
Yeah, well, that's about the only good thing about Montreal right now because they are not good on the ice. The Canadiens won 4-1 in their last 6 overall after they lost 4-3 in overtime to Nashville on Saturday. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay 6-1-1 in their last 8 after they whipped the Flyers 7-1 Sunday on the road. That was the end of the Alain Vigneault era in Philadelphia. Tampa Bay's won 8 of the last 10 meetings between these teams, including winning the Stanley Cup Finals in a series that Montreal had no business being in to begin with, but that's a different story. As you can see, Montreal's come back to earth when they had to play teams that weren't just in the North Division. They're 29th in goals against, giving up 3.58 goals a night. If you look, Andrei Vasilevsky has owned Montreal during the regular season in his career. He's 11-1-2, a goals against of 198, a .939 save percentage, and 2 shutouts in 14 career starts against them. Tampa Bay's 4-1 in their last 5 after a win. They're 54-15 in their last 69 against Atlantic Division teams. Montreal 1-7 in their last 8 against Eastern Conference foes. The Canadiens are a sieve defensively. They don't score all that well. They're minus Jeff Petrie on the blue line, Joel Armia, Tyler Toffoli, and Brendan Gallagher also out from the forward positions. That takes away 3 of their more productive offensive weapons. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Nick Suzuki, and Jake Allen's going to have to basically be perfect in order to bail out the Canadiens. I don't see it happening. Tampa Bay just rolls lines at you like waves in the ocean, and they roll right over Montreal, leave the Bell Center with a convincing victory tonight.
Well, as I said, go over and get some smoked meat. There's plenty of good stuff there in Montreal while you're there for the Lightning.
I'll take your word for it.
There you go. Vasilevsky. Forget about this season with Montreal. People forget Vasilevsky was lights out in the Cup final last year against Montreal.
Right. And like I said, those are just his regular season numbers against him. That doesn't even factor in, that they won 4 out of 5 games in the finals last year.
Right. And he was, there were a couple of chippy goals that ended up getting in there, but for all intents and purposes, Vasilevsky just doesn't give up goals, and he certainly doesn't give them up to Montreal often. So,
especially with the Montreal team that can't score right now.
Good point. So now we move from Montreal over to see Ottawa and the Islanders.
Let's talk about a team that can't score. The New York Islanders.
Oof.
Barry Trotz, I know you love to play defense, but you got to find somebody that can actually put the biscuit in the basket.
Right.
Are the Islanders 0-8-3 in their last 11 games? That is not a typo. 0-8-3. On the plus side, they put Nashville up to scoring 1 goal per game at the new UBS Arena. Fortunately for them, this game's on the road where, they average better than 2.3 goals a game. So it's almost like the Mike Bossy, Brian Trottier years when the Islanders are on the road. Meanwhile, the Ottawa Senators have won 3 straight games, and people are wondering what the hell's going on with the Ottawa Senators. That doesn't happen. They beat New Jersey in a shootout last night, 3-2. The Islanders are averaging just 1.9 goals a game this season. That's second worst in the league. They're only better than. Tell them who they're better than, Jim. Who do we beat on every time we see them on the slate?
Oh, that would be the wonderful Coyotes of Arizona.
That's right. And we told you last night to not take the Arizona Coyotes. We told you to take the Dallas Stars, who had won 6 straight. We told you to take them with the puck line over the Coyotes. Dallas wins 4-1. Arizona showing just how efficient they are by scoring once yet again. Meanwhile, the Islanders, they've, like I said, they're 31st in the league in scoring with 1.9 goals per game. That drops to 1.64 against Eastern Conference teams. They're 1-11 in their last 12 when they've scored 2 goals or less in their previous game. They're 0-5 in their last 5 when the opponent allows 2 goals or less. And here's a stat for you. The Islanders are favored. That's not a good thing. They're 0-5 in their last 5 games as a favorite, and they're 0-5 in their last 5 games on the road. Senators might be a little tired after playing the second game of a back-to-back, but I have no faith in a team that can't score and is 0-8-3 in their last 11 games. Look for the Senators to hang around and probably steal this one late as the Islanders find a way to lose yet again.
They seem to be able to do that, unfortunately, for the Islanders and Barry Trotz. Quick shout out to our buddy Bruce Boudreau, who is
That's true, Bruce. I owe you an apology. I said that Vancouver was still a dumpster fire, and you would go in there and watch the Kings beat you into the ground. And suddenly, your team managed to score goals, and Thatcher Demko had a shutout.
Right.
So thanks, Kings. That shows that I shouldn't have faith in teams from Los Angeles.
At least,
yep. You remember the punch?
The Clippers, yeah.
And Euler, you remember the punchline from yesterday about Arizona? That's right. Yep.
Cactus, to be sure. All right, guys, let's keep moving because there's only 4 games on the slate tonight, so let's get them all. Here comes.
Oh no, there's a slew of NHL games. It's the NBA that's light.
The NBA is light. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, we're going to go to Buffalo. The Anaheim Ducks on the road, and they're going to take on the struggling Buffalo Sabres. And I have no faith in the Sabres, just like I have no faith in the Islanders. The Ducks 2-0-2 in their last 4 after losing 4-3 in a shootout to Washington last night on the road. Buffalo just 1-7-1 in their last 9 games. They don't have Craig Anderson. He's now out month to month, which might as well just say he should just retire. And Dustin Tokarski's in the health and safety protocols for COVID, in addition to taking a puck off the face in practice last week. So Buffalo turns to Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Good luck trying getting that one in a spelling bee. If you were watching Wheel of Fortune and picked K, you'd make a lot of money. It's his first start of the year, the 5th of his NHL career. That doesn't bode well for Buffalo. Anaheim 5-0 in their last 5 when their opponent scores 2 goals or less. They're 4-0 in their last 4 on Tuesday. They are 7-0 in their last 7 against teams with a losing record. Buffalo just 10-41 after losing by at least 3 goals in their previous game. They're 1-5 in their last 6 as a home underdog, and they're 1-5 in their last 6 at home. Luukkonen might be there, but it doesn't help the Sabres. Even if Anthony Stolarz gets the start over John Gibson, look for the Ducks to take this one on the road.
Anaheim played well last night against the Capitals. It wasn't one of those games where the Capitals played badly. It was a game where Anaheim came and really played well. They played well all the way through, and as you said, they lost in a shootout. So at the end of the day, they did. It's not easy for a team coming from the West to play good in the East, and they did a nice job last night. So from the ice, we had
you missed one. You missed one game.
Oh, we did. Okay, hang on.
Yep.
We're going back.
You went from Ottawa to Buffalo. There's one in between.
There's one. Okay, here we go. The Rangers and the Blackhawks.
Yep, in the Windy City. The Rangers won 6 in a row, and 9-10. They beat the Blackhawks 3-2 at Madison Square Garden Saturday night. They've taken the last 3 between these teams. Igor Shesterkin is on injured reserve with a leg injury. He'll be back in mid-December with all hope. So Alexander Georgiev will get the start for the Rangers. That's not a drop-off necessarily. He's been pretty solid in his starts this season. Rangers 5-0 after allowing 2 goals or less in their previous game. 5-0 in their last 5 after a win. The Blackhawks 4-12 in their last 16 on one-day arrest because they ended up playing on Sunday and beating what did they beat? They won in a shootout over. Let me double check because I don't want to give you bad information on who it was. I remember writing about the game. I was not overly impressed because Chicago beating anyone doesn't really move the needle all that much. That's right. They beat the Islanders. That's why I forgot.
It's easy to forget the Islanders. Yes.
They beat the Islanders 3-2 in a shootout on the road. They're 1-4 in their last 5 on Tuesday. The Blackhawks don't know how to put together a winning streak, as Lou Brown would tell you in Major League. They're 0-4 in their last 4 after a win. Take the Rangers on the road, minus 126. They should take that one fairly comfortably.
Okay, after my bobble on the ice, it's time to move to the NPA and to the hardwood. And here we go, as we go where Brooklyn and the Mavs face each other.
Yeah, it's in the Lone Star State at the good old American Airlines Center, so Mark Cuban will be in attendance. I'm going to take the Nets minus 4 on the road over Dallas. Dallas has lost 4 in a row, or 4 of their last 5, and they've dropped their last 4 home games. Luka Doncic is questionable, so is Tim Hardaway for Dallas. The Mavericks have had struggles on the offensive end of the floor. They're 25th in scoring offense. They're 22nd in field goal percentage. They're 21st in three-point shooting. The Nets are coming off a 4-point loss at home to Chicago Saturday night, but they've still won 6 of their last 8. Dallas is 1-6 in their last 7 at home against teams with a winning road record. They're 0-4 as a home underdog. They're 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 at home. In that stretch, we've seen them lose to New Orleans and Memphis in the last 2 contests in that stretch. I don't like them here against an actual good team. The Mavericks have started to fade after that strong start. They now find themselves looking up at Memphis in the Southwest Division. Things don't go well for Jason Kidd and the boys here. Take the Nets minus 4 as they prevail. In the first game of back-to-back, the Nets will be on the road tomorrow in Houston to face the resurgent Rockets.
Well, we'll see how resurgent those Rockets are come tomorrow. Let's move on. This time we got the Knicks in San Antonio.
Yep, and this is coming to you from the AT&T Center in San Antonio. We saw the Spurs last night. They lost 108-104 to Phoenix. They did cover the line in that game, but they've only played a back-to-back once this season, which is surprising when you look at some of these teams around the league that have played a whole slew of games like that. They lost that one. They lost 121-111 at home to Milwaukee back on October 23rd. The Knicks have lost 3 in a row, fall under 500, but they're still 6-4 on the road this season, so they've had more problems at home where they're just 5-8. The Knicks are 7-0 in their last 7 on Tuesday. They're 4-1 in their last 5 on the road against teams with a losing home record. They're 8-3-1 in their last 12 on 2 days of rest. Meanwhile, the Spurs are a dismal 1-3-1 in their last 5 against the spread in the second game of a back-to-back. It's only a 2.5-point line, probably because Tibbs has seen his team struggle on the defensive end of late. Look for them to bounce back here and get back in the win column, even their record at 12-12 on the year with a road win over a tired San Antonio team. We talked about San Antonio yesterday afternoon going into last night, how they beat Phoenix, or they didn't beat Phoenix, they beat Golden State
right.
After Golden State had played Phoenix the night before. Now they're the team playing in the second game of a back-to-back against a team that's rested, and that's why I'm going to stick with the Knicks.
Well, to paraphrase Lloyd Benson, the San Antonio Spurs are not the Phoenix Suns or the Golden State Warriors. So I'm not expecting them to have a second act in this back-to-back. Meanwhile, off to Boston and Lakers. Now, this used to be a big-time game. Not so much anymore.
Yeah, the Lakers, both teams hovering around 500 right now. Boston's won 3 of 4 and 6 of their last 9. They're lost in that stretch, a 137-130 shootout to Utah Friday night. Meanwhile, the Lakers have lost 6 of 10, including a loss to the Clippers at the Staples Center, soon to be the Crypto Arena or something. Mm-hmm. Avery Bradley and Carmelo Anthony are both questionable for the Lakers here. Jaylen Brown's a game-time decision for Boston. He's missed the last 2 games with a hamstring strain. Boston's 6-1 in their last 7 on the road against teams with a winning home record. They're 5-1 in their last 6 as an underdog. They're 5-1 in their last 6 as a road underdog, and they're 8-2 against the spread in their last 10 on the road. The Lakers 1-8 in their last 9 against teams with a winning record. They are 1-6 in their last 7 when their opponent gives up 100 points or more in their last game. There's not a whole lot good that you can say about the Lakers right now. They're still trying to figure out how they can get 3 guys to shoot the ball on the same possession with 1 basketball. There's not a whole lot of depth you can rely on that team. We saw these teams play in Boston last month, and the Celtics ran all over the Lakers in the second half of that game, winning going away. You have to wonder, does Frank Vogel wish he had Dennis Schroeder?
Probably.
Because he might light it up again for Boston tonight and help them pass the Lakers. I have no faith in a Los Angeles team that has no depth and can't find their way past having anybody other than LeBron, Davis, or Westbrook shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, this Lakers team, let's be honest, they're a team that's probably just a couple of days away from going for the 4 o'clock Blue Plate special because of the age of that team. It might be the only team that has 3 or 4 members that are members of AARP.
And the difference between this team and the Lakers teams of the 80s is, you had stars. You had Magic Johnson, you had Kareem, you had James Worthy, but you also had guys like A.C. Green and Michael Cooper and even guys like Kurt Rambis.
Oh, sure.
That knew their role. Byron Scott was another one that knew their role in the organization and did their best to make everybody else work together. This team with the Lakers right now is so fragmented and disjointed because there's so much, like they always say, there's no I in team, but there's an M and an E, and that's basically the mentality you get from some of these guys when they're on the offensive end of the floor, and it doesn't work.
Well, yeah, but there's another thing to this, and it's my big personal beef against the quote-unquote super teams when you build a team, right? When you bring in a LeBron James, when you bring in a couple of other stars, that leaves you zero amount of money to spend on peripheral players, right?
Exactly.
So if you look at the Golden State team, I mean, they did it with KD was there, and that worked out well for them. But when KD moved on, that cleared up enough money for them to, fill in those spaces with some actual decent players, and they're playing again as a team. So you and I, being old school, think the same way, and that is, give me a team who can play, and I'll take on these quote-unquote super teams that are like instant pop-up teams that put together, because you can't fill out that roster with any depth that is meaningful depth.
Right. I mean, if you look at a team like the Jazz, you've got a superstar there. You've got Donovan Mitchell. You've got Rudy Gobert in the paint. But you've got other guys that can contribute. You've got Mike Conley running the point. You've got Bogdanovich and Joe Ingles that can shoot from the outside. Right. You've got Jordan Clarkson, the reigning 6th man of the year. You've got Rudy Gay and Hassan Whiteside, who took less money than they might have gotten somewhere else to be part of this team, and they're all contributing. You look at the Lakers. Beyond Davis and James and Westbrook and maybe Talen Horton-Tucker, who do you look to put this team together? And there's not a whole lot of pieces. Nobody's intimidated by Rajon Rondo. He's he's one of the few guys you see that airballs free throws.
And, bounce them off the back of the backboard. No, I do think to me, the super teams, well, we looked at it when we look back just for a second. Look at what happened when Miami was a super team, right? They played Popovich, and they 2 out of 3 times San Antonio walked away with a trophy, and LeBron and the boys went back to South Beach without anything. So
they did get a participation trophy.
No, they did not. They got a little blue ribbon and off they went. But no, again, the super teams to me, like we talked about earlier with the teams of the 80s and that sort of thing, where they actually were teams. I sound like an old get off my lawn man, but at the end of the day, I do think that team concept is much better, and the league is much better off with team play as opposed to these pop-up super teams, which don't particularly seem to go anywhere. Time, my friend, for Two for the Money.
Right, and we've covered these games already. I like the Rangers over the Blackhawks on the road. Like we said, Rangers are on a roll. The Blackhawks are still a team that's very disjointed. They're fragmented. Um, they haven't gotten good goaltending, and they don't score a ton. Other than that, they're great. And sticking with the New York team, I like the Knicks over the Spurs. Like we said, San Antonio playing the second game of a back-to-back. This time they're the tired team as opposed to catching on the second half of one. And then on the flip side, I like Edmonton at home over Minnesota. The Oilers should bounce back after a couple of rough showings. And like we said, Villanova or Syracuse. Syracuse's defense is just too leaky to have any faith in right now, especially against a good Villanova offensive team.
Yeah, and I thought for a minute there you worked for the Madison Square Garden Network because all of a sudden you were picking both the Rangers and the Knicks to win on the same night, which is almost as rare as Haley's Comet. But
yeah, I'm pushing to get Kenny Albert.
There you go. Well, there you go. He's the guy with both of them. So we'll get back there. So we've got 2 for the money. Time to go for 4 for the show.
Yep, and I like the Celtics plus 2.5 on the road against the Lakers. We just talked about it. The Lakers don't know what team is. They couldn't spell it if you spotted in the T, the E, and the A. Now, in case you're wondering, that's just a riff off Fred the Hammer Williamson when he said Terry Bradshaw couldn't spell cat if you spotted in the C and the A.
Right.
I like the Ducks on the road over the Sabres. Buffalo just is, they've started strong. They've fallen apart. They don't have any good goaltending. And trying to go to Lehkonen, making his first start, he wasn't all that impressive down in the AHL with the Rochester Americans. It's going to be a bit rougher playing an actual team at the NHL level, especially a surprising Ducks team that has played well, and they've actually been scoring, which is something that's a major deviation from the last couple of seasons, when scoring 2 goals was cause for celebration. Then, like I said, I like Michigan over Nebraska on the road. The Wolverines giving 7. But Nebraska just lost by 13 to an Indiana team that has been good. But the Cornhuskers, Fred Hoiberg likes to run, but he doesn't really have the depth or the offensive personnel beyond McGowan's and Alonzo Verge Jr., who transferred from Arizona State. And after that, there's probably not any shots left for anybody else anyway. And Tampa Bay, minus the puck line over Montreal. We said the Lightning 6-1-1 in their last 8. Montreal has fallen apart, not like they were good to begin with. They're minus 3 forwards and one of their top pairing defensemen. Vasilevsky has owned them in his career. You have to think that Tampa Bay will gleefully go into the Bell Center, take the 2 points, and leave.
Get on the plane and fly home. Yes. We have 2 for the money hit last night. We have some 4 for the show. We've had some good stuff come up this week, Chris. And now I will let you give the disclaimer, but we're going to have what we like to go is the old Jack Buck line, go crazy, folks, go crazy. Here's a bunch. Pick them out. Have some fun with it. Chris, you can explain.
Yep, I call it the shot in the dark because, some people that really like to take a shot will go and take all 10 of these. I don't do that myself. I would just say pick out the ones that appeal to you the most. If there's 3 or 4 of them, go with that. If there's 6, do that. We've had a couple of times where we've had 6 or 8 of these come out, and we've had people stringing them together and come out way ahead in the end. So choose what works for you. But these are other picks that I like that are on the board. In college basketball, I like Oakland. That's right, Oakland from Rochester, Minnesota. You figure it out. From the Horizon League, minus 2.5. They go on the road against Bowling Green from the MAC. I like Arkansas minus 18 at home over Charlotte. Charlotte did lose to Davidson last week by 17. Arkansas undefeated on the year. They tend to steamroll people at the Bud Walton Arena. I look for that to continue here. Princeton at home, minus 12 from the Ivy League over Bucknell. Bucknell, not the team that we've seen that has made runs to the tournament in recent years. They're just 2-7 on the year. I don't have a ton of faith in them right now. In a surprise, because we've talked about DePaul before, going back to the Ray and then the Joey Meyer era when they had success. But I like them at home tonight over a Duquesne team that I feel bad for Keith Dambrot. He lost his best players to the transfer portal last year when Sincere Carey and Lamar Norman Jr. transferred. The Dukes aren't the same. They'll probably be near the bottom of the Atlantic 10 unless they suddenly get a talent infusion. Take DePaul at home. On the ice, I like Florida on the road over St. Louis. I don't have any faith in the Blues. They have a tough time stopping opposing teams, and we know the Panthers can light you up at a heartbeat. We've seen them score 4 goals in the third period of multiple games in the last week. They did that to rally to beat Washington last week 5-4. They did it last week to beat Buffalo 7-4. You can't really keep them in check for long. The Islanders and Senators, I told you I like Ottawa at home, even playing the second game of back-to-back. I also like the under in this game because we said the Islanders don't score. Ottawa's not good in their own end, and they're going to be tired, so you might see a lot of dump and chase, which doesn't really play to an offensive bonanza, especially when you're considering the Islanders and Trotz's style is pretty much the same, where you just dump it in and hope that something happens. Look for that to fall under the total. And Edmonton at home over Minnesota. The Oilers due to bounce back, like we said. The Wild, I'm not overly convinced about. And then on the NBA, the Celtics and Lakers, I look to go over 219.5. They went over in the first meeting this season when the Celtics won 130-107. And I like the Nets and Mavs to stay under 218.5. Like we said, Dallas is 25th in the league in scoring offense. Brooklyn's pretty good defensively, so they don't need to score 115 or 120 points to win. And one final college game, the Toledo Rockets from the Mid-American Conference at home. Look for them to take down the Bradley Braves of the Missouri Valley. Give the 5. The Rockets soar to a victory on their home floor.
You know, it's you're talking about the Oakland team, and we've brought this up, and why don't you talk just a little bit before we get out of here on the importance of paying attention to some of those smaller schools and some of those smaller conferences, because there is value in that.
Right. Everybody wants to chase, the schools they know. Everybody wants to chase the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the Pac-12 or the SEC or the ACC or in basketball, the Big East. The problem with that is everybody wants to chase those teams. Everybody wants to go and say, yeah, I took Duke minus 57 points and they lost because they only won by 42 over Pennsylvania A&I Tech Community College State.
Right.
Well, that's the problem. They played Pennsylvania A&I Tech Community College State. The problem is you have to stay away from games like that for the most part because they end up burning you. But if you go to these smaller conferences, the teams are more evenly matched. You're also going to find some good teams in there. You've seen it in March Madness in the last few years. You've seen teams like Ohio beat Virginia last year in the first round. You see teams like Stephen F. Austin make runs. You've seen George Mason run to the Final Four or VCU run to the Final Four. You have to look at these teams from the Horizon or the MAC or even the Metro Atlantic or, to a lesser extent, Conference USA. But there's good teams everywhere. There's teams in the Southland Conference. There's teams in the SWAC.
Right.
There's teams that you wouldn't necessarily hear of. Like, I don't know how many people pay attention to teams like Oakland or pay attention to Wright State or pay attention out west to the Montana Grizzlies. Mm-hmm. But these teams are all out there. Colorado State in the Mountain West. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good teams that get overlooked. And if you take a deeper look at some of these teams, you'll find that there's value there because nobody else knows necessarily about them because they're too focused on the big teams. If you look at some of the smaller school teams and you look at those matchups, you'll find things that are more favorable because a lot of times you'll end up with some wackadoo line because nobody knows anything about them.
You also hit on a point in the list of games, which to me is always fascinating. You got the Princeton team out of the Ivies, and you had them beating was it Bucknell, right? Out of Patriot.
Yeah, Bucknell from the Patriot League.
Yeah, so you had two leagues, Bucknell from the Patriot League and Princeton from the Ivies, where those are two conferences where you're going to get value because there are, back in the day, it used to be Michigan and Ohio State. They used to call the Big Ten the Big Two and the Little Eight. Well, in those conferences, there are some dominant teams, and the rest of them are not necessarily as dominant. You could ride Princeton for a couple of games and do very well. The same thing could be said of another teams that you brought out in the other leagues.
I'm surprised. Yeah, a lot of people, like I said, they overlook them. And Nathan, I see you took Northeastern over UMass. UMass has played some good basketball, but Northeastern coming off an impressive win over Colgate. And before anybody discounts Colgate as another small school from the middle of nowhere, because they're in the middle of central New York, just remember, that's a Colgate team that went on the road and hung 100 points on Syracuse in the Carrier Dome and beat them handily by 15 points just a couple weeks ago. So for Northeastern, Bill Cohn's got a really good team there. He's had a lot of success in the recent years. I like Northeastern. They've played some really tough teams in the early going. They've split with Colgate. They lost to Colorado State by 10. Colorado State's played some very good basketball. They lost to Harvard. Nobody's going to fault you to lose to a Tommy Amaker team. It's not like they have bad losses on their books. UMass, yeah, they're 6-3. They lost to Ball State, they lost to Weber State, and they were drubbed by Yale. While they are coming off a win over Harvard, their other wins, UMBC, nobody's really thrilled. Penn State, nobody cares. UNC Greensboro, they had to go to overtime. They beat UMass Lowell, which, okay. They edged Rutgers by 2 at home, and they're coming off that win over Harvard. So I would say their best win probably in the last 2 games. But I like Northeastern, especially at home. They're only giving 1.5. It seems like a pretty safe bet.
It's definitely a good, easy bet. Okay, folks. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Be sure.
Yes. Hold on, Jim. Yeah, Josh, I'm a Bills fan. I grew up in Western New York. I went to college in Rochester, so I know the area pretty well. I've been to. I remember when I used to go, it was still Rich Stadium, which kind of dates when it was. I remember the comeback and everything else. So
we got Josh saying that he loves the Fred Jackson jersey in the background there. Yep,
it's I should put up some new ones. I have to dig them out because they're all in the closet. I kind of rotate them.
Josh is from Rochester. He lives in Vegas now, so that's good to know. And Nathan is
well, then you should know about the University of Rochester on Wilson Boulevard and Nick Tahoe's and all that good stuff, Josh.
All the good stuff. So, and Nathan tells us that he's living now in the Southwest, but he definitely knows his East Coast ball. So, Nathan.
Yep. I spent time in the Southwest too. When I was in the military, I spent time at Fort Huachuca down in Arizona, then Sierra Vista. So I used to go to Arizona Stadium and watch the Wildcats back in the late 90s. Then go to Tempe, Sun Devil Stadium, and all that. So I'm familiar with the Southwest. I've basically been, I like to say I've been to all 4 corners of the country and back and in the Midwest and everywhere else. As Rod Trongard used to say, from coast to coast and continent to continent, I've been there. John?
Yeah, see what John
if that's still you can send us a bunch of autograph stuff and we'll put it up on the show too. Congratulations on the Patriots winning that game last night. As a Bills fan, it was disappointing to say, but Belichick did a good job. Favorite play. I really like Villanova over Syracuse. I have no faith in the Syracuse defense. When you're giving up 79 points a game and you're getting torched from 3-point range, it's absolutely horrendous. The Wildcats, they're a dangerous offensive team. They've got a lot of depth. Jay Wright knows how to get every last bit out of his team, and he will run Syracuse ragged on that end of the floor.
And he just loves beating Syracuse. So there's that too. John, Nathan, Josh, Joan, everybody who joined us in the comments today. Love it. Keep it coming. And we look forward to seeing you every day if you get a chance. If you can't watch us live, remember we're on demand literally after the show ends. And be sure to check in with our buddy Scott and Scott, who comes up at 3:00 on Back to the Window. They're always entertaining as well. So yeah,
Let us know who they bet the farm on, so we can
right.
so we know.
So we can rag on them. Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, by the way, always good to see all you guys coming up. And I see John is screaming weekends.
We're gonna work on it, John. I mean, hey, if you guys can go on the road 300 days a year for the WWE, why not, right?
Right, why not? Exactly. So, guys, greatly appreciate it. Stay tuned for Scott and Scott at 3:00 on the Winners and Whiners Sports Betting Network. I'm Jim Williams for Chris King. We got to get out of here for right now, but please come back tomorrow 1:30 and we'll catch you again. Again, if you didn't get a chance to see the show or you're not going to be able to see it live, you can always see it on demand. Literally the moment that we close down shop here. So thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Jim Williams. He's Chris King. We'll see you tomorrow, 1:30 right here on Just Parlays.